Okay, here we're going to be talking about adding vectors. So remember, a vector is a strange entity that has size and direction. So it's often represented by an arrow. The length of the arrow could represent the size of the vector, and the arrow points from the start to the end of the travel, or starting here and pointing that direction is the direction that we would go, the direction of the force, the direction of the velocity, or whatever have you. So the start of the arrow is sometimes called the tail, and the end is called the tip or the head. Okay, so we are going to add vectors together. Here's where the strangeness of these things actually shows up. Okay, first of all, the easiest situation in which to add them is when they're going in the same direction. And then actually there's no weirdness whatsoever. So if you imagine heading out and walking, let's say 10 meters to the right, and then another 8 meters to the right, and then maybe finally another 5 meters to the right. Oh, that looks like 6 meters. Okay, we'll just make it 6 meters. So here I visually represented adding 10 meters plus 8 meters plus 6 meters, all in the same direction, all heading off to the right. So I could see it like this: 10 meters to the right plus 8 meters to the right plus 6 meters to the right. And all I would have to do if I saw this right, right, and right is recognize that this is all in the same direction, and I would just add these up. So 10 plus 8, 18, and 6 is 24 meters to the right. This is the total distance that I would have traveled. The total displacement is 24 meters to the right. Or a 10 Newton force plus an 8 Newton force plus a 6 Newton force, all pulling in the same direction, would add up to a 24 Newton force in that direction. So if everything's acting along a line in the same direction, it's pretty straightforward. Up here we see modeled the tip to tail method of adding them, which is, okay, another color, which is, here is the very first tail, and here is the very last tip. In between, each vector's tail has been added to the last vector's tip. So when I went to put down the 8 meter vector, I'm like, where should I put it? Well, I'll put its start at the last vector's end. So I'll put its tail at the last vector's tip. So tip to tail method of adding vectors. And this, the very first tail, all the way to the very last tip, is the sum. So the first tail to the last tip gives us what we call our resultant, which is just a fancy word for the sum of a bunch of vectors. So the resultant starts at the first tail, ends at the last, and you can see here it's going to be 24 meters long and is pointed to the right. So that is adding vectors when they all point in the same direction.